Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I'm back today with another story for you. If you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And now on to today's topic. Today we are going to talk about the lost Dutch oven mine of the Mojave Desert in California. In June of 1894, Thomas Schofield worked as a worker for the Santa Fe Railroad, and he worked at the Danby Water Station on the railroad line. And it's located in the middle of the Mojave Desert of California. It sits in a valley between many mountains, and his job was to be a caretaker of the station and to fill up the passing trains with water so they could continue on. And they had to stop because back then the engines were steam engines and they needed a good supply of water to produce enough steam to turn the wheels. So they had to stop at his station. But there were a lot of times that there would be downtime between trains, and for a pretty extensive amount of time. And it was pretty boring being out in the middle of nowhere. So if he was done with some trains for the day, then he may go exploring in the close by mountains. And he always knew when the trains were coming because they ran on a tight schedule, and they would usually arrive right on time or maybe just a tad ahead or behind. But at times he may not have a train for a day or two. After he was done filling up a train, he may go into the mountains and prospect and kill some time. So sometimes he would camp out for the night in the mountains so he could explore a little more or get a little further away from the Danby station, depending on the train schedule. So there are conflicting stories about what Thomas was doing at the time in the Clipper Mountains. He was either looking for water source for the railroad, since there was no water at the Danby area. I believe the water had to be brought in and the big tank had to be filled, and then it was used for the trains. So since there wasn't a water source there, some people say he was in the mountains looking for a water source for the railroad, and some say he was just killing time prospecting. But maybe it was a combination of both. We don't know for sure. So either way, most of the stories put him in the area north of Danby in the Clipper Mountains. And about 3 miles into the mountains, it was said that he had been following some sheep tracks, and he found a rock house. It appeared to be many years old and abandoned for some time now at that point. So he continued hiking for 9 more miles, and he came upon a spring or a stream, depending on the story. From the spring, he followed a trail that went over the hill, and going over this hill is where he encountered a boulder, he said, as big as a house, and he said it was split right down the middle. So this left a small passageway to go through, which he did. Once through it, it opened up into a large, flat, high shelf that was surrounded by walls or mountains. And the only way in or out of this area was through this split boulder. So this flat area, it became obvious, was a prior mining camp area. It had bones of dead mules there, and remnants of tents and pottery and mining tools and pots and pans and remnants of bedrolls and other signs of being a mining camp. He also found a mine shaft here that went into the mountain from these prior prospectors, possibly the Spanish, maybe many, many decades earlier. And he chipped a few pieces of gold off of the mine shaft where he saw a little ore vein, and he was pleased with the gold in the ore sample. And he realized he had been spending quite a bit of time, going around the mountains, and it was starting to get late, or getting to the point in the day that he realized that he was not going to be able to make it back to the Danby station. He would end up, in the middle of the Mojave Desert by the time the sun went down. So since it was getting late, he decided that he would just go ahead and sleep here high on this shelf in the mountains. And he went to sleep, and he couldn't sleep a whole lot that night, it was said, because he was thinking about the gold and everything. But at daybreak, he awoke and was kind of groggy, and he got up and prepared to leave, and he tripped over a Dutch oven that was also there. And as he tripped over this Dutch oven, it tipped over and the lid came off and it exposed its contents. And spilling onto the ground was a big cache of gold nuggets. So he filled his pockets with gold nuggets and he left the camp. He then bought a train ticket to LA and cashed in those gold nuggets. So apparently he must have quit his job or just left his job. So anyhow, at that point he had enough money to, party and drink and hang out for a couple of months or longer before he finally ran out of money. And it was said that his nuggets that he had cashed in got him over $1,000 cash, which was a lot of money in those days. And it was said once he was out of money, he came back to the Danby area, but that was about 2 years later once he had scrounged up enough money to get back there again. So apparently he blew all of his money. And then he needed to probably work and scrounge up some more money so he could go back east. And once back, it seemed that the area had changed and he could not recognize the landscape and how to get back to the lost mine. Or at least that's how the story goes. He spent the rest of his life looking for it, and he never found it. So he was interviewed in 1936 by Walter Miller and George Haight, and he was living in an abandoned store near Danby in the Mojave Desert at the time, and he actually told this story to them then. And at that point, he was 84 years old. He was tired of telling the story, but he swore it was true, and he swore the Dutch oven mine was still out there, and it was said that it was in the Clipper Mountains. And the Clipper Mountains do have a couple of other mines in the area and at least 3 springs that flow out of the ground there. So that's the story of the Dutch oven mine of the Mojave Desert that may still be out there. But that might not be the whole story. There may be more to it than this, so stay tuned for another video soon that may present some more details on another side of the story. So like and subscribe if you like these kind of stories.